Wedding Talk with Mindy and Carol, your insider guide to trends, tips, and stress free planning.
Hi, this is Carol.
Hey, and I'm Mindy. Welcome to Travel Talk with Mindy and Carol. We're so excited that you are here with us today. Between Carol and myself, we do about 50 destination weddings a year.
Yes, so today we're going to kind of delve into the subject about do you need a wedding planner when the resort often offers a wedding planner, at the resort, what the differences are, why you would need one. So that's kind of what we're going to delve in today. Both Mindy and I do on-site wedding planning and wedding planning besides being at the resort. So we're going to kind of delve into that and answer maybe some questions that come up in your mind. What are your thoughts, Mindy, on that?
Well, I think it's a great topic, and I know we kind of touched upon this in some previous episodes, but what Carol and I really wanted to do, because I just got back from being on site with a wedding group. So, when you're on site, people think, oh, are you just there hanging out on the pool and doing things? No, we are literally working nonstop.
Yes.
Nonstop. So, while everything's kind of fresh in this mind in our minds from this wedding that I just got back from, we thought it would be a great opportunity to kind of talk a little bit more because, you know, I don't know about you, Carol, but like I offer a couple of different packages when it comes to wedding planning. I don't necessarily need to be on site if you don't want me on site. I can do just, planning and then turn you over to the resort coordinator, or you can add on that on-site component. But I think there's a lot of misconception in the industry as to, yes, we are destination wedding travel specialists, but really, where does our position kind of end and
Yeah.
the resort team take over?
Yeah.
So maybe we should explain that a little bit too.
I think that, a lot of brides, think of what a resort wedding planner is similar to what a wedding planner in the United States is. And I think that's where the misconception comes in. I
Because it's
believe
two
that,
separate
yeah,
things.
yeah, and it's two separate things. The one thing that, and also working with a wedding specialist and as an advisor for your room block and or even another wedding planner, the biggest thing is understanding is just, what kind of bride you are. Do you want to begin that wedding planning right now? What kind of things are you looking for in a wedding planner? I think those are the things that, kind of stipulate the difference that people don't really realize.
Right, because what people don't realize is, okay, I booked my wedding date. My wedding isn't until 2027. I'm ready to get started planning. And people don't realize that the resort team is not going to start working with you in some cases 2 to 3 months prior.
Yes. Yeah.
So we understand you're anxious to get started, but at the same time, you also need your numbers to get started as to what you're going to do. But if you're going to be locking in, say, outside vendors, there's nothing wrong with starting early and getting those vendors secure, because if they're a popular vendor, other people are looking at those dates and will secure those dates in advance.
Yes, and I also think that there's a lot of confusion. They look at the wedding contract, they're excited, they sign the wedding contract with the resort, and they're like, "Well, my friend's coming to take photos," and they really just kind of scrolled by the outside vendor fees and don't really even understand the whole process of,
Right.
what's all involved in that and how you can work around things. And there's just a lot of, and when you wait, I think too, when they wait till that 3-month period when the resort starts talking to them, then that puts them in that panic mode and
Exactly.
they just take what's in front of them and then they get discouraged or upset.
Yeah, yeah, because and you made a comment just a second ago about like outside vendor fees, and you really have to understand the brand that you are working with, because some brands, if you're, say, for instance, you're having an outside photographer and they're staying in your room block for 3 nights or more, the outside vendor fee is waived. But there are some cases where the resort will say, I don't care if they're in that room block for 3 nights or more. They're an outside vendor. You're not using our approved vendor. You're still going to be hit with a outside vendor fee.
Yes.
And then a lot of times when there is a vendor fee like that, that vendor fee just covers that one particular person. If they're bringing any kind of assistance, then there's another fee on top of that as well.
Yes, like if they have, if the even though the one person's doing video and photography and they have two people, they're going to charge them a double fee because one's photography,
Exactly.
one's video.
Exactly.
And a lot of
Yeah.
that's just becomes a lot of misconception. And I think that kind of when they get to that point where they're starting to work with the wedding planner, that's where that frustration comes in with a lot of brides.
Hmm.
And, we can alleviate a lot of that. Or, just getting your own wedding planner that is used to doing destinations, not just Mindy and I myself, but somebody that knows how to work with those
Yeah.
destinations and help you. That could save you a lot of money in the long run and also pay for our fee, basically.
Exactly, exactly. And, you know, keep in mind, the resort is going to want to know from you who's your photographer, who's your videographer, which florist, they're not get diving into the little details for you, like, hey, are you like, remember to bring a card box or something like minimal like that that you may not think about? They're just basically your order taker in a sense. They're there to execute that event the day of, making sure you get down the aisle and that the reception is set up correctly.
Yeah.
They have your music, they hand it over to the DJ. They're not going over the little details with you of things that you may need to be doing that you might not have thought about.
Yes.
Um,
And it's kind of like your DIY. It's a DIY. It really is.
yeah,
It really is. I mean, some resorts will send, basically when their welcome letter, they'll send, a packet of information showing you their costs of their preferred vendors, and
mhm,
it may not be what you want, but they're just general. I mean, everything's just
yeah,
general. So
yeah,
they're not asking you for your color scheme. They're not asking you, what are your color schemes. They just give you what's there, and we'll talk about it later.
yeah, yeah. Where when you're working with someone like Carol and I, right from our initial meeting, we're talking about your vision. We're working on like a Pinterest board, bringing all of that to life for you so
Hmm.
you can kind of visualize everything.
Yep.
Because that's a big thing I always hear from couples all the time is, well, I can't visualize what this is going to look like
Yes. I
from
mean,
a picture.
there are resorts out there, as we know, that there are, believe like AIC, if you want to start wedding planning right away, they have a diamond package that they can pay the fee and they can start right away. I
Yep.
think that's a really good thing for some of the resorts that, for those that want to. I mean, there's a lot of things that people just don't know. I mean, especially when they book their wedding at Hard Rock. The first thing, even though I've told them, and Mindy as well as you do, you've told them as well exactly about, where their venues, all that kind of thing, all that stuff. All of a sudden, after the deposit's been paid for the room, the deposit for the hotel, you'll get an email and say, "So where is my wedding at?" And you're like,
Yeah.
we went through this, and then
Yeah.
you give them
Yeah.
the same email again. And because, I think the euphoria and the excitement is so much there that they tend to just kind of blow it off. And then they're like, oh, I need to get on this if I want my venue. And each place is
Yeah.
different. A lot of resorts don't charge you for a venue at a
Yeah.
time. It just depends on every resort. So,
Right.
and even, I mean, I know I have a list of other wedding planners if I'm not available that I can turn them
Exactly.
to check with as well. Just because if you want it, it's not something you have to. How do you feel
Right. It just,
yeah, I mean, how do you feel about weddings that are 30 people and under or 40 and under?
so I just had this conversation with a couple the other day. And if it's 30 people or under, I really think you're okay, depending on the resort, because as we keep on stressing in all of our talks and everything, you really need to know your resort brand because every single resort brand does things differently.
Yeah.
Okay. So depending on the resort, um, I would say if you're like 30, 40 people, you may be okay with just the resort wedding team. If you're that type of bride that is okay and can trust that process. If you feel you need more hands-on, then definitely talk to a wedding planner because there's so much that takes place that day. The last thing that you want is number one, the resort wedding team coming to you saying, hey, this isn't going to work because it's windy, or hey, it's raining, we got to come up with this plan B. or you arrive at your reception and the way you told them you wanted something set up is wrong.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, so it's all the little things. It's all the little things. And like when I'm on site and like when Carol's on site, we're there to make sure everything is taken care of. We want you to be able to enjoy your guests. And that resort wedding team knows we're there to assist them. We're a guest in their house. We're here to make their jobs easier as well. But we also have been involved in the planning from day one. So we also know what to do.
Yeah.
So if something is put out wrong or in the wrong place, we're like, mm-mm, that's wrong, you know. So we're your advocate there to make sure everything is running smoothly.
Yes.
Plus, you know, from the guest perspective, if you're working with someone like Carol and myself, who is also doing your room block management, you know, it's funny, your guests think we automatically work for the resort, you
Yeah.
know? So like when we're on property and Carol does this too, we're in the lobby greeting your guests. We're hosting like office hours and, you know, handing out, you know, your welcome bag, but just introducing ourselves to your guests. And it's just so funny how many just people come up to you and just like give you a hug because like you feel like you've known some of these people because you've been working with them for so long or chit-chatting with them on the phone because they'll call for like a question like, hey, does the room have a hair dryer? And an hour later, you're, you know, getting off the phone with them because you get to know them on a personal level.
Yeah. I always tell brides, if they're at that point where they're like, well, I got 25 people. Do I really need a plan? I always say to them, you probably, depending on the resort, you will be okay. But I always say, do you have somebody in your wedding group that can be that buffer for you?
Exactly.
Can they be your gal Friday, that will be willing to step up the day of the wedding and run around and take pictures of your setup, check your setups, and be that person that can help you? That would,
Right.
and be your buffer for your guests if something's wrong with their guests.
Yeah.
If you have somebody in your group and you have a smaller wedding like that, they should be able to handle that. And
Yeah.
we're always available if, to get a hold of us too if there's a room problem. There's always an 800 number for 24-hour service for that if it's late in the evening when they arrive. So that stuff can all kind of be handled, if it's an easy group. But when you're looking at 75 to 100 people,
I think you definitely need
I
somebody.
I do too because in the past, ones that have decided, couples that have decided that they didn't need one, after they've come back, they've stressed to me they made a mistake. Um,
Hmm.
they were busy running around because the food was running out and the hors d'oeuvre table. Instead of enjoying their wedding, they were doing what they would have paid someone else to do, thinking that the wedding planner and property would do that.
Yeah.
And most of
Yeah.
them do. It just like again, it all depends.
Depends on the resort brand. It really does.
It does.
And, you
Hmm.
know, Carol and I have been doing this a really long time. So even if you're a small group and you're booked at a particular resort and we know how that wedding team is, we may say, okay, you should be okay, but this is what you should prepare for. Or you may want to consider, you know, having somebody. So again, I think it really does go back to the resort itself.
Yeah, and I think too they've got to realize, I mean, which we always run into this. We always run into somebody that has a timeshare or has an Airbnb and they're going to show up to the resort. And, we don't know because if they're working directly with the wedding planner, we don't know until later on that they're having this many guests from outside when we finally see, when we talk to them with the finals, because
Yeah.
sometimes the bride doesn't even know they're not coming, or she's looking at the guest list and saying, where's such and such? And you're like, I've never heard from this person. And so,
Yeah.
then we start investigating and we find out that they booked somewhere else or that they booked wherever. I had for instance, that I mean, the bride she didn't tell me, she did not know until the day or two before the wedding that a friend was bringing somebody that was part of the wedding party from off property. And
Mm,
beside the day pass to the wedding, which is always an hour before, the wedding and then the wedding, and then you have to get off the property. They wanted to stay and to party into the night with them.
that's a
And
no-no.
yeah, and they basically, the guests that had invited her reached out to me afterwards and said, how come we were never told that she couldn't stay the whole time? And there again, didn't even know till,
Mhm.
and the bride, paid for her outside vendor pass. And I said, well, that should have been discussed at the time when she signed and paid for her, how long she was going to be there. So there's some miscommunication as well because the bride, she didn't have to play that intermediate person. And they just automatically assumed that, again, that we work for the resort and we should have known.
Right. Yeah, they think we are in a little cubby hole someplace on the resort property. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it is nice to just be on property. And I don't know about you, but I can't do it all the time just because it is a big commitment to be out of the office. But I really do enjoy being on site with my groups and just seeing how everything unfolds. And, we talk about trusting the process and all that stuff, but like all the behind the scene things of getting the area set up and how fast the resort teams can get everything done. It's really is
Amazing how,
miraculous to watch how fast and how everybody just works together, has their specific roles, and even like from right after the ceremony, bringing some of that stuff if you're recycling it down to, the reception and getting, because some of these areas like the pools and stuff, they can't close them off until later on in the day because there are guests still at that resort that are utilizing those areas. So there really isn't much time to flip these areas into a wedding.
yeah, they do a great job. And
They really do.
yeah, and I'm with you. I mean, I've cut myself down to I only do one wedding a quarter anymore. It's just too much time away because it is time consuming. And I think
Mhm.
if you get too many, because we do the bloom blocks and everything else like that, it just takes away from every other bride. So I've kind of cut myself down to that.
Yeah.
But like I said, there again, I have other really great wedding planners that I can refer them to
Right.
that work hand in hand with me. So, it's a win-win for any bride that really is looking for a wedding planner. We've got the whole package.
Right. And again, not every couple will need the on-site component. That's why like we break our packages out with, hey, I can be involved in your wedding planning on taking care of everything or involved in every call, just depending on how you want to structure and how hands-on you want to be. And then if you want the on-site, component, we can add that on separately and everything for you. But there's a lot of little things to think about when you're doing your destination wedding. I had a bride reach out to me a couple weeks ago and we were not doing the wedding planning and she asked me, she's like, they're asking me for a timeline. And she didn't like think to, well, who do I ask for this? Does the photographer give this to me? Is this something I put together? And it like, so she was stressing out. And I was like, just chill. I'm going to send you over an example. And
Yeah.
then, you can figure out how you want your day to flow and everything.
And that, like there again, most resorts have that, but some of them, yeah, it just depends
Yep.
because we all know that
Right.
these resort planners, they change often. Um,
Yeah.
you get some really good wedding planners and just like anybody in the industry that, you get a step up or some other resort that wants you that you can make more money. Of course you're going to go, so that's one thing that gets a little confusing with the bride too, which panics them is they start with
Mhm.
one wedding planner and then all of a sudden, a month before, they're sending emails to that wedding planner and no one's responding because she's no longer there.
Yeah, or you like I had this happen a couple of years ago. This particular couple, they did not hire us for planning. They were going to take care of it themselves, which is fine.
Yep.
And they went down to the resort, did a site visit, met with their planner, did all the planning. Then it comes to the wedding. They arrive on site, and that planner quit a couple of days prior. There were no notes in the system, so nothing that they planned was documented. And here they are a couple of days before the wedding, trying to bring the new person up to speed. Needless to say, there was a lot of mistakes. They
Mhm.
were very, very unhappy. And their only saving grace of their wedding day was that I insisted that they did a outside photographer.
I had that happen as well at a resort, and I wasn't even notified until
Yeah.
like 2 weeks before, and they were having a hard time reaching the resort. So, I picked up the phone to call the resort for them because they were doing the planning directly, just like you said. And sure enough, yeah, they did have some notes. They were handed off to two different ones within 2 weeks of their wedding. A lot of things happened. We had to go back and fight for some funds for them because things
Yep.
just disappeared, all kinds of things. So, yeah, so that's kind of in a nutshell. We could go on and on forever, I think, on this subject, but
Hey, like the sun just kind
yeah,
of came into
yeah,
my office here.
yeah, I can see that. So yeah,
I'm like, woo.
yeah, we could go on and on forever, but we just
Yeah.
kind of want to touch base on that today, just kind of give a little, option to know that that is available and what is the difference. And and it
Yeah.
depends on your personality as well. You have some really laid back brides that they don't really care. They just want a simple get your
Yeah.
feet in the sand, care what flowers I have. I'm gonna do whatever they give me, and it's all about the party, and I don't really care. There
Yeah.
everybody has a different view, and so letting
Yep.
us guide you whether what you need, that's what
Yeah.
we're here for. So yeah,
Yeah, and like, my couples, and I think Carol, you're pretty much the same way too. Like, once you sign my planning for my contract, rather for wedding planning, we're setting up that initial call because we need to, in lack of better words, pick your brain a little bit about like what your vision is because you may not understand what your vision is. And then when you see what you're telling us put together, you're like, oh, that looks horrible. Yeah, so
yeah,
you want that time. And Carol and I've been doing this a long time, so we have ways to ask questions to kind of pull things out of you of what you're looking for
yeah.
that you might not even realize that you're describing certain things to us that you're looking for in your wedding, or maybe not looking for in your wedding.
Yes, I agree. So, it's one of those things, like I said, we're here for you. All you gotta do is when you have that initial consultation with us, or, hey, if you've already booked your wedding block, already room block with a resort direct, but you feel you need a wedding planner, we can help you too.
Yeah, yeah. We're here. We're here for everyone. And, you know, we want, whether you're working with us, somebody else, we just want your day to be beautiful and memorable for you.
Yeah. And next week, we're going to have a conversation with the Palladium Resorts BDM.
Yeah.
So we will get that out to you next week. But for now, I think we've covered pretty much a little bit of everything, and we hope we that helped you make a decision whether you do need a wedding planner or not.
Yeah, and if you feel you need to talk more and because you're still on the fence and you have questions, you can always reach out to us. You can find us on social media. Our website is www.weddingtalk.com. And we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok, so you can reach out to Carol and I directly. We're here to help answer your questions. We've been doing this as I know I keep on saying it, but we've been doing this a long, long time. We have a wealth of knowledge. And if it's going to help you make a decision on even down to the right resort for you, as I tell my couples all the time, I will be completely honest with you. You may not like what I'm telling you, but at least I'm going to give you my honest opinion of what I think of a resort,
Yeah.
because it's not just the resort. It comes down to the wedding team as well.
Yep, it does. It really does.
Yeah.
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 So we will talk to you next week. So long for now.
Bye bye.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more wedding inspiration and tips. Visit us at destinationweddingtalk.com for resources and updates. And as always, send us your questions to Mindy and Carol. We love hearing from you. Join us again next week for the latest episode of Wedding Talk with Mindy and Carol. Until then, happy planning.